speaker is Alison Ray. She's coming from Oklahoma all the way for you guys, so don't you feel the love. She is currently the Divisional Memory Care Specialist for the Southwest Division for Brookdale Senior Living. It is her 12-year experience that affords her the opportunity to communicate, counsel, and train families, associates, and individuals affected with dementia. Please welcome our speaker, Alison Ray.
In Oklahoma, we don't have one. Well, anyway, thank you for having me here today. And thank you to the Alzheimer's Association. I think this is a beautiful opportunity for people to network and learn and experience everything that we need to know about this disease. And so I'm very privileged to be here today. Like she said, I'm from Oklahoma. Yes, I have all my teeth and everything. Oh, okay. Here. Is that good?
The whole podium.
Oh,
I'm
here playing with the little there, and it's got the whole thing. All right. So in order for us to back up a little bit, everybody up here has been beautiful and very articulate today and very educated. And the one thing that I like to discuss is the fact that sometimes we need to back up a little bit. Okay? So in order for us to establish relationships with people with dementia and their families and their caregivers, it's usually about communication. The way that we communicate with people with dementia and those caring for them is extremely important. So all of the beautiful things that we can roll out in the world cannot be effective unless we communicate effectively. Oh, I have a screen. Effective communication, this is kind of an overview of what we'll talk about, and I know we're running short on time, so I'm not going to try to stand up here and read all these slides to you. It's very wordy. Effective communication requires skills and knowledge of the disease. That might be very back to basic for you, but sometimes we have people in the audience that are from the home. The other thing I want to challenge you to do, it looks like here today we have a lot of healthcare professionals, people that go into homes. I heard that we have people here from prison. I've heard that we have people here from communities, and so we all, and family members, so we all are going to accept information about communication differently. So how you communicate with a person with Alzheimer's disease will affect the relationship at hand and their response. Understanding progressive loss of intellectual abilities, the effectiveness of positive physical approach, validation versus reality orientation, tips on communication and the positive use of prompts and cues. Huge fan of prompts and cues. Positive communication techniques effective within the various stages of Alzheimer's. So the importance of communication and understanding the progressive loss of intellectual abilities. Dementia threatens the important link between the person with dementia and his caregivers and families. When there's a disruption in or interruption of communication in any human contact, there is disconnect. Okay, in politics, in teaching, in leadership, in parenting, and never has it been more effective than in the world of dementia, especially in Alzheimer's. As the disease progresses, persons with dementia may have increasing difficulty expressing wants, needs, and the ability to share personal experiences and memories. They may demonstrate difficulty understanding following directions, both written and orally. So it's really important. One time I was speaking to some doctors and I was telling them, you know, sometimes when you write a prescription, especially people that are in early stage and early moderate stage, that are still driving their cars and everything, and then you wonder why they're not following through with what you say. It's because they didn't recognize the fact that they can't follow those directions. And so A lot of times when we're dealing with people with this disease, prior to them having someone assigned in their life to handle these affairs for them, we have to be really careful as care associates and caregivers and healthcare professionals that we recognize these signs of when they're going to need a little bit of assistance. Words at one point will no longer have meaning, and so when words don't have meaning any longer, we have to find other ways to communicate. Relationships are affected when communication becomes difficult. And that's not just in the world of dementia, Alzheimer's, but in any interaction that we have with other human beings. Residents may begin, and I say residents there because most of the time I'm talking to people that are community-based, may begin to withdraw. Persons tend to talk to the caregiver or family member instead of persons with Alzheimer's disease. The one thing that I've really watched a lot of in my communities, I have 40 rich communities in Oklahoma, Texas, Louisiana, and New Mexico. And I do a lot of observations inside the communities. We have a lot of third-party providers that come into our communities as well as our own. And the one thing I really like to watch and coach with people is that we never forget that the person with the disease is there. We always want to focus on dignity. I see so many times family members and doctors and nurses and care associates especially, educators, executive directors, tend to talk around the person that they're speaking about. We really want to focus hard on dignity. It's one of our platforms at Brookdale this year, that along with reducing antipsychotic medications. We want to focus on dignity, remembering that they're in the room, remembering that the first conversation needs to be with the person. You may have to have a separate conversation later with the family to get the point across, to get directions followed, but it's real important that we still adhere to self-esteem and dignity by addressing the resident, even in the very late stages of dementia. About 2 years ago, I was in the hospital, and I heard the nurses outside of the room talking, and they said, "Have you checked on the gallbladder in 138? And I went, "I'm not even a person anymore. I'm just a condition." So we really have to work hard as human beings. It's not that we're not educated. It's not that we don't know better. It's not that we don't have this inside us. It's time-based. You keep going and going and going, and you get into your rut of the day. And what we need to continue to do is, like I said, we need to back up a little bit and really focus on the human aspect of this disease and continue to remember adult human beings till last breath in and out, and they deserve that respect and honor. So as healthcare professionals, please remember that the resident comes first, the human being comes first, the person that you're dealing with, your family member, comes first, and that the initial communication needs to be with them, whether they're understanding it or not. Out of respect, we need to give them that honor and dignity. Our residents may experience decreased self-esteem. Everything about this disease can be combated with self-esteem building, okay? And your interactions with that is your first step. So every interaction that we have with a person with dementia needs to start with a smile, start with a greeting, just like we would if we were meeting a stranger on the street. And those interactions early on are what's going to be important as far as moving forward with our next interaction, which is whatever task that we're trying to accomplish with them. Residents may demonstrate an increase in anxiety and fear due to lack of communication skills. Wouldn't that be something horrible if you no longer can communicate? It's a horrible feeling to have your voice taken away from you. It's one thing to be stifled or shushed, or even in the library, sometimes I feel a little claustrophobic because I can't talk. So imagine it not being your choice and you can no longer get your point across. It had to be a very fearful and anxious type thing to go through. Family members may demonstrate frustration, anger, depression, resentment due to the change in the person with Alzheimer's communication. One of our earlier presenters mentioned the sense of loss that this family is going through, and we always have to remember that sometimes this person that's coming to us, once we've had that important conversation and interaction with the person with dementia and Alzheimer's, that there's these other people that are surrounding them that didn't plan on this. Almost everybody in this room, except for family members, planned to interact with people with dementia. We made this choice to go down this journey with them. family members did not have a choice, and we all know what it feels like to not have a choice. So be patient, be kind, be understanding, and understand that the sense of loss, no matter how it comes to you, is just that. It's a very low place to be. Disease process and the effects on the brain. The parts of the brain most affected by dementia disease process are those responsible for language expression and comprehension. Your temporal lobe is responsible for language, your hippocampus, your short and long-term memory. That short-term memory is what I can't get care associates to understand most. When I'm in communities observing, I hear a lot of things, and one of my pet peeves where I get a little chill up my spine is, I just told you that, or you know better than that. And they really don't. They really did lose it. And so getting that across to our care associates, some of you in home health, the people that you're sending into the homes, those are the people that really, really need to understand the communication techniques, okay, because they're the ones that are right there dealing with that person. So it's real important that we understand the fact that when we say the short-term memory is lost, that it's truly gone, and or being touched at that moment to where they really do lose that information. The short-term memory is the kind of person that can sit down with you in one moment and tell you this beautiful story about their wedding, the beautiful story about their children, but they can't tell you what they had for breakfast because it's truly not there anymore. So those are some of the things you need to watch for if your supervisors, care associates, or home health aides, and anybody interacting on a professional level, is that we truly, truly, truly need them to remember. They have the cognitive ability to remember. That short-term memory, when it's lost, that it truly is, and they have to be very patient and kind and learn to listen a little bit harder. The 5 major functions of the brain when they are touched by this disease is recognition, which is agnosia, decreased ability to recognize objects or their use, for instance, sucking on a butter knife instead of a straw, things like that. You'll see things like that quite often. I had a lady in one of my communities that's near and dear to my heart, and she had her purse everywhere she went, and she was a social climber. She was in the country clubs, and so she had her purse, and she came to the table, and she took out her stick deodorant, and she took out a fork, and she was shaving it on top of her spaghetti because she wasn't in a place where they're going to have that little grinder come over and say, "Would you like some more cheese on that?" Oh my God, they're close. Would you like some more cheese on that? And so she kind of created it herself, so it was inappropriate in our world, but in her world, that she was doing what she was accustomed to. So memory, of course, is amnesia, decreased ability to learn and retain information, asking the same question over and over and over again. Speaking and understanding is aphasia. Decreased ability to express or interpret language, the inability to understand what words mean. I also try to instill in care associates that just because you ask someone to sit in a chair does not mean that they know what the chair means anymore. So sometimes you have to do some gestures and some prompts. Activities of daily living, apraxia, brain cells, the parietal lobe, decreased ability to remember how to dress, brush teeth, your daily normal functions start to fade away because you no longer have understanding. Major motor skills are affected, the use of your arms and legs. There's nothing wrong with your extremities. It's the portion of the brain and the brain cells that are being damaged that tells your body how to use those things any longer. Validation versus reality orientation is a very touchy subject in some worlds. Everybody has different philosophies. Some people truly believe in validation. I think that validation therapy can be very helpful sometimes in early stage, early moderate stages when someone still has a little bit of reasoning. Later it's about validating their expressions and their feelings and their emotions. And so effective communication can only be successful with a person with dementia if you meet them at their point of need. There's a lot of books out there right now, and one of our focuses at Brookdale is habilitation, where we're going to meet people at their point of need by programming and caregiving and dining and all the different aspects of their life. If you don't meet them where they are, then you're either understimulating them or expecting them to do things that they cannot achieve. So understimulation leads to disengagement. Asking them to do things that they can't do, oh, there's your self-esteem. When I first came into this business, I did an internship at the Veterans Administration in Clinton, Oklahoma, about 25 years ago, and I absolutely fell in love. That's the only way I can describe when you have passion for people with dementias. It's truly about falling in love. But I was a recreation therapist, and I thought, oh my goodness, I must be with children, therefore I must. So I went out and I became a preschool director, Montessori approach. And so a lot of what I did then is very relevant to what I do now, very back to basics. So when I finally did the whole 8 years of child care, I kind of figured out I don't really like children. I do like mine. They don't smell bad, and they're really okay with me. But it really wasn't the children, it was their parents. Hence the gray hair. So I read an ad in the paper one day that said Life Enrichment Coordinator with Altera. It has now been absorbed by Brookdale. And so because it said life enrichment, I mean, what better job in the world than to enrich people's lives, right? And it didn't say activities director, which I took great offense to. I didn't spend 5 years in college to be an activities director, although I know some beautiful ones. But anyway, it said life enrichment coordinator, so I went in and I had my little cape on and da-da-da, I'm going to change their lives. Yes, I am. So I went in not knowing about habilitation, not knowing. They handed me a book and said, this is your job, and so I immediately reverted back to my Montessori preschool days and started setting up life skill stations before life skill stations existed. I had a parenting doll before they knew anything about that. I was just quite the advanced programmer. However, what I didn't know was about habilitation. So I got my residents together, we got our coats and hats on, and we went on a nature walk, and we picked up pine cones all over the place, and we brought the pine cones back, and it just happened to be the holidays. So I set a group of 8 beautiful women, late, moderate stage dementia, in a circle with hot glue guns and little bitty beads. Yes, I said hot glue guns. And we proceeded to try to put the little bitty beads on the little bitty pine cones to make little bitty Christmas trees to put on their little bitty television. So, who do you think made all those trees? And what did I do to their self-esteem? Because I gave them a project they could not do. We sang and hot chocolated our way through it. Don't get me wrong, I would never sit there and intentionally do this, but what I learned is that when you give somebody something that they can't do, it doesn't make them feel very good. So I didn't learn it in a book. Sometimes you have to have the hard knocks come to you hard. The one great thing about my position then and my position now is I can be as wrong as a weatherman because I can make it better the next day. So it was a great learning experience for me, and it was a great story for you to know about how we want to really focus on self-esteem and habilitation and meeting people where they are in their disease process. It's important to enter the person's reality. That's one of the first things that people learn when they always say that. Enter their world. Don't expect them to come into the world. And on paper, that's a very beautiful thing. When you have 38 people living in a community, or you're responsible for a multitude of different levels of dementia, sometimes it's hard to go into 38 realities. So we do. It's hard to get care associates who have 8 showers and check-in changes before breakfast to take the time to let them come or let us go into the reality. So sometimes that's not easy to do. But I tell you, it's the easiest thing if you slow down, and it's the most effective, because the more we try to bring them into our reality, the bigger that we're going to fail. Like failing all the time. So embracing the concept of go with the flow. I had to learn go with the flow very quickly and early in my career. Took the same group of ladies with the hot glue gun, and I felt bad. So we got in a van and we went to a place called Nichols Hills, in Oklahoma City, big fancy houses. It was Christmas time. We went through the Sonic. We got hot chocolate. We had Christmas music playing. We sang. We bonded. We touched. We oohed. We awed. We came back. The next day I walked in and I had coffee because I was going to go around and give everybody coffee. I said, didn't we have such a wonderful time last night? And they went, what did we do? I had to learn to go with the flow because my little ego here was bruised. I've done fabulousness here and no one's here to recognize it. Oh my God. I had to become very important to myself. Embracing the concept of go with the flow, embrace it. If you can't go with the flow, you've got to go flip the burger. Avoid arguing with the person to correct them. It may result in agitation and cooperation may end. Cooperation may end is the key there. To communicate effectively is trying to get the person who might not understand you, who might not know where they are, what generation they woke up in today. The cooperation may end, and that's where I'm not going to say failed, but you've got to come back later. Effective communication, positive physical approach. Every training known to man has this positive physical approach, but it is so important to approach a person with Alzheimer's with care. One of it is giving the brain time to understand that you're there. As with any social interaction, there's an expectation of greeting to initially connect with a person we do not know, right? So you see those people, they're here in the room. You don't want to walk up to them because their body's telling me no. They were up trick-or-treating late last night. You know, but when the hand comes out and the smile comes on, hi, I'm such and such, and you feel this approachableness that you need to move forward. So that interaction is extremely important when we're dealing with our residents and folks with Alzheimer's. Giving their brain time to know that you're there, giving them time to understand and appreciate that someone's coming into their space. The initial approach used with a person with dementia can break or make or break the interaction communication. If you start off wrong, you can just kiss the baby. Go the other way. Start again. Not going to happen. A positive physical approach usually results in a successful communication. A human connection may result in cooperation with tasks. Human connection. Love that. Human connection. Person-centered care versus patient-centered care. Huge. Not room 138. Not the woman with diabetes. Not the puree at table 3. Betty Smith, I have to think of her name on this one. Betty Smith, earlier in the presentation, I think his name's Robert. I'm not going to try to say his last name because I'm from Oklahoma and I bite my tongue. Malaire.
It's not Mailer.
Malaire. Anyway, I don't know if he left or what. Oh my goodness.
He did.
He's a busy guy. Okay, well anyway, he was talking about shadow boxes. And in the Claridge world, I think every memory care in the world has shadow boxes. And what we want to do in our shadow boxes is reflect the person's role, recreation, and relationships that they have in their life and or had. So we want to put them in front of the disease and not define them by it. So when we're talking about these beautiful interactions, we want to talk about Betty Smith. We want to talk about that she was a teacher, that she loved to mountain climb, and that she had a brother and a sister, or a mother and a father. That was she's great, a great daughter, a great aunt, or something like that. So these approaches to people have to be person-centered. Okay, very hard to do when it's a multitude. However, as you get to know them as people, your approach comes differently. I approach both of my children differently. You know, I can run up and my daughter will just grab me and we will just hug, and my son's like, what's up? So pretty soon I know I can go, what's up, to my son, and I can hug my daughter. So we learned that about each other because we're all individual human beings. Positive physical approach usually results in successful communication. Isn't that what we're looking for? right? Successful communication leads to successful interactions. So we want to come from the front, giving the brain time to process. Here I come. Here I come. Approach slowly also about giving the brain time to absorb. Even in the very late stages of dementia, when you're going into someone's room and you knock and introduce yourself and their head still faces the window, it's not that they don't know you're there, because if you wait about 12 seconds-ish, the head turns because it registered. Someone's here. Someone's present because we gave them the time to absorb that information. Get down at their level. We don't want to stand over them like a teacher or a principal. We don't want to get too low to where we're no longer in control. But more success is achieved by being at the same level. You also don't want to get down low next to someone who's going to knock you out. That's another thing about person-centered care. You got to know. When you get to the side, it's less intimidating, especially if you're a doctor or a dentist or a nurse. You know, they get on that little stool and put it between their legs and roll up to you real fast, and you're still in the stirrups. Kind of intimidating. That's a different presentation. Offer your hand and smile. Offer your hand and smile. How hard is that? Oh, I see it all the time. Engage in pleasant exchange to establish a connection. The connection's what's important here. If you establish a personal and or positive connection prior to the task at hand, which might be a shower, which might be a discussion about a prescription, which might be getting dressed for the day, which might be coming down for a meal, which might be, you know, Mom, I really need to come and get in the car with me if you're home. Whatever that interaction is at that moment is going to dictate how the rest of it goes. I have a lot of people right now, what was your name? I'm so sorry. Stress Denise. I'm going to call you Stress Buster. Anyway, Denise, she was talking about music earlier, and we're learning more and more and more about the benefits of music, and so I have some care associates that the rule is that you don't have your phone or your gizmolator. Everything electronic, this included, is a gizmolator to me. GPS, iPad, all of it, gizmolator. So if I say gizmolator, it's because, anyway, they have their gizmolators you're not supposed to have while on the floor, but at care associates that go back to the daily path and they find out what each person's favorite song is. And then they put it up there with their little bitty speakers, and they start their care in the morning with the person's favorite song. That's not even a conversation. You don't even have to be able to speak to do that, but you connected with that person in a positive way. If you flip on the lights, rip off the covers, and turn on a cold shower, how does the rest of your day going to go? Right? But if you start it with a little Charlie Daniels, sorry, I don't even like Charlie Daniels, it just came to me. Sorry. I looked at you and Charlie Daniels. Effective communication, how we communicate verbally, how we using words and language, non-verbally, our body language and gestures are very important. The way we stand, the way we cross our arms, the way we roll our eyes, the way we listen to this question 900 times. All of that is important to the person who can't communicate, therefore everything else is very sensitive to them, right? They're trying to figure it out constantly. It's crucial that we pay attention to our body language. It must convey friendliness, relaxation, or we may instill mistrust. How can you have a person-centered relationship if you have no trust? It's one of the reasons we promote static staffing in our memory care, because we want that person to know that resident very, very well. We don't want them to know 38 residents this much. We want them to know those 8 to 10, depending on staffing, very, very well. So person-centered care, person-centered approaches. This is easiest for your home person. However, working with the family member at home in such a time when they have such loss, getting them to understand this, because I've dealt with a lot of them, and the first thing they say is that I don't know them anymore. That's not my mom. So we have to have them heal a little bit and understand the benefits of person-centered care, not getting to know and not defining, but to get to know the person that is there before them. Okay? It's very, very difficult on these family members who feel that's not my mom anymore. Okay? It is your mom. It is your dad. It is your brother. It is your sister. They're in there. So don't ever think that this disease is going to take that away, because it's not. Paraverbally, tone of voice, volume, loudness, cadence, or pace of our words is extremely important. We need to have an even, calm, relaxed tone. We need to slow our words down. If we don't slow our words down, then we need to do less words, not too high, not too low. I had a man that lived in my community one time, and we couldn't do anything with him. I mean, I used all my fabulousness. There he was. It was him or Haldol. That's all I could say at the time. That's 10 years ago. I don't believe it now. So, anyway, it was me or him or the highway, right? Well, then I talked to a family member. Very key ingredient is family members who really know that, not on paper. Right? He was a military man, had very little respect. His wife was a homemaker. His mother was and not that he didn't respect the woman, he didn't listen to the women, right? It was where he was from. So I had to put a baseball cap on and go and say, Charlie, it's time for your shower. You know, sometimes we had to salute him. Whatever we got to do. You know, I will dance in a pink tutu if it'll get you to take a shower and eat some food. I don't care. Anyway, so your tone of voice is very person-centered also. Get them later. Avoid using negative statements. You need to take no, don't, you can't, or stop out of your vocabulary. Okay? Especially you folks that are taking care of family members. Very difficult. Very difficult. Okay? I tried that in my preschool once. Didn't work. Sorry. This works. If the person jumbles their words, try to converse in a positive way. That's interesting. That's nice. Okay. Very positive, very understanding, a lot of shaking of the head. You don't say. I like that one. You might get the gist of what they mean by listening. People always say, I don't know how to talk to her anymore. I don't know how to talk to her anymore. Stop talking. Listen. Pick out the words that you need to pick out. It's usually the very last ones. Matter of fact, they're going to pick up your last words. So if you got a whole lot to say, like, time to go to the verbal diarrhea that we throw out in the world, right? They're going to pick up the very last one you said, right? Be careful what that last word is. Adjust your pace and slow down, break the sentences down to two or three words instead of, it's time to go to breakfast and da-da-da-da-da, this, that, and the other. It's time for breakfast, come with me. Simple. Very simple. Very direct. Oh, back to that. Smile. Oh, gotta smile. Essential verbal communication tips. A person with dementia may be frustrated due to naming and word-finding difficulties. They struggle with finding the right word or name for something. Give a person space to try to find out the word on their own. My mother had a horrible habit. She didn't have cognition issues. She wasn't demanding. She wasn't anything, but she could not stand delay. So she spoke for me, she spoke for my brother, she spoke for our pets, and she spoke for my dad. We didn't have to talk until we were 12. I mean, we'd go to the doctor and the doctor would say, how are you feeling today? And I'd go, and she'd go, oh, she's had a little fever, and you know, we got to give them the chance. Find the words. Sometimes they can't. Make a guess if they seem frustrated. If it's really starting to frustrate them, then you can step in and say, are you meaning, or you said this, or where did you last see it? Things like that. Word substitution, a different word or phrase may get substituted when a person with dementia stumbles over words. I need the thing that coffee goes in. I know exactly what they're talking about, they just can't find the object to match the word. Or I need to find my perk rather than my purse. If you listen carefully, we already know what they're trying to say. Ask them to repeat the word or even just go with the flow by saying, where was it when you last lost it? Try to get them involved in the search or the problem solving. Be sure to listen for the intent of the statement as it may be, you guess what is being said. Third person speech. Sometimes a person with dementia appears to be speaking about a person, but indeed they're speaking about themselves. She had a beautiful dinner, and they're just really talking about themselves. One of the earliest moderate stage dementia things that you'll notice is that they introduce people by their wrong title. This is my mother when it's truly her sister, things like that. This is where it's hard not to correct. Okay? This is where it's hard as a person in your position when a person with dementia introduces you to her daughter for the 10th time. Every time I ask like it's the first meeting because that self-esteem would be belittled, that's what I call it, belittled, if we pointed out, oh no, I've met her many times. Oh, you just introduced me to her tomorrow. It's just not a big deal. What's a big deal is that she's proud of what she's doing. I'm introducing you to my daughter. Embrace that. Confabulation, pardon me, a frog. A person fills in the gaps in memory or speech with false information or information they think is true. So they want to be involved in conversation. They desire to continue to converse, and sometimes confabulation comes in when it's truly not the truth, but they can really adhere to, and get their conversation flowing. Avoid correct them. You can respond with the general statements like, you don't say, I love it. Really, that's interesting, I didn't know that. Avoid correcting them or telling them that they're wrong or it never happened. That's a big one. Oh, that didn't happen. You know that didn't happen. Oh. I love her. I love you.
I feel the same about you, Alison.
I'm a little passionate again. Essential verbal communication tips. Emotional amplification of speech problems. Speech becomes more impaired or incoherent during times of heightened anxiety or emotion. That's a very important time just to back off. We've all got our schedule. We've got to get on to the next resident. We've got to, all these other things. If you go then and you go now and the anxiety's up here, it's not going to be a successful visit. It's just not. You can't change it. Not a magic wand, not a pill, not anything that can fix that. You got to be able to back off, try again, try later. A little more mileage in your car. You got to do it. Create a calm space for communication. Avoid loud or distracting environments. Possibly move to a quiet space when trying to converse, especially when a person's upset and you may avoid a crisis. Use a positive physical approach and smile. This can redirect the focus off of being upset, and they may mirror your emotions. A lot of times, they will pick up on the emotions or the things going on in the environment. Okay, so we are part of their environment, so if we become happy or smiling or calm, then our hope is that sometimes that will be reflected in them. Reverting to a prior language, someone touched base on this earlier. Foreign-born people with dementia who use English as a second language may revert back to their language of origin or mix up the two. So if you are a doctor or a dentist, you might need an interpreter to come with you. Or if this is going to be someone that's permanent in your life, you want to come up with cue cards or learn a little bit of language. We learned a little bit today with bowing, and I didn't know that. I had a little language lesson today and it's gone. Creating a list of crucial words on how they are spoken into language is crucial. Words like hungry, thirsty, pain, need to go to the restroom, hot, cold, or afraid. When I speak to the people in my company, I usually start out by going around. Everybody has to introduce themselves, and 9 times out of 10 it works out for me because somebody will say, I'm in the middle of learning a language, or I know 3 languages, or something like that. What we're trying to get people to do in this industry is learn a new language. It's the language of dementia, it's the language of Alzheimer's, the language of Parkinson's, person-centered, verbal, gesture, physical, tone, whatever it is, it's a new language, and it's the language of this person that you're trying to deal with. So learning a new language is never easy. But it's going to be, in this industry, a very important one. The baby boomers are coming. Here I come. We're more caffeine dependent, we're more chemically dependent. Some of us got Ritalin when we were 2, not me of course, but I'm just saying it's coming. There's more secondary diagnoses now with bipolar disorders and things like that. So it's going to be very important that the people in this industry learn this language. There are people in this industry that never will, they're here for a different reason. If your passion is truly about Alzheimer's, if your passion is truly about dementia, you're not doing yourselves any favors by sticking to the textbook. You've got to go learn these people, learn their language. Tangential or nonsensical speech, incoherent words or phrases that don't make sense, or conversation that wanders off topic. Find a quiet, we keep going back to them. Find a quiet and calm space to converse. Speak slowly and carefully and maintain a calm, relaxed demeanor. Pay attention to the person's body language and look for emotional tone and content. Repeat back what the person is saying. They may clarify it for you. Very important step. Essential verbal communication tips. Vision and hearing concerns may affect how they interpret what is communicated to them. When vision and hearing starts to decline in our people that already have dementia, some strange things start to happen, and that's when communication is very important. A lady laying in bed at 3 o'clock in the morning wakes up and she's going to go to the restroom. It's one of the reasons we like to have night lights in our bathrooms. The bathrobe on the back of the wall now becomes a man standing in the room because the visual is taken away, the cognition is taken away, and so you wake up and there's this dark figure. That's when a care associate needs to be coming in and being really skilled at communication, because we can't come in and say, we can go show her, no, look, this is not a man. She, in her mind, that was a man. And if you come in there and tell her it wasn't, then you're a liar and she doesn't trust you, and so on and so forth. This education that you guys get is beautiful. It's what we share inside our communities. Those people that deal with the residents or the care associates, family members, one-on-one. We've really got to understand how they're thinking and how they're feeling and be understanding of it, even when we know it's not correct. They may nod or yes and be polite. This happens a lot due to misunderstanding, you know. Some of you guys are nodding at me right now. You're just want lunch, I know. So they just want to get along, go with the flow, right? They want to do the same thing. So it may not mean yes, so this happens a lot. Care associates go and they'll say, so now we're going to do this, and they're going, and then they go to try to do the task at hand, and whoo! Whack. They may no longer recognize words, but pictures on the door help them understand. Moderate stage, this is really helpful for labeling. If they still recognize words, labeling helps. If not, either to the pictures. Eventually, things like that won't work. It tickles me silly. I'm so sorry. This Oklahoma thing. I don't like the word commode. Don't know why, but anyway, it says on here, a picture of a commode on the bathroom door. Commode. A picture of a plate of commode. It's a commode. It's a toilet. It's a toilet. Commode. Residents have different words for objects and places, and so that's back to person-centered care. If a man's called the toilet, or the John, or the bathroom, we need to know that, because if we tell him, let's go to the bathroom, and he doesn't know it as bathroom, and he knows it as John, then we need to know those terminologies that they use. That is a different language. Prompting and cueing. I'm a huge prompting and cueing fan. I also love props. Big prop person. Creating things in their environment that stimulate that portion of their brain that we need them to be utilizing. Prompts and cues, a verbal, physical gesture that reminds a person of the dementia what to do next. We are their next step, we are their initiative, we are their clock, and we are their calendar. In order to do that, you have to use prompts and cues, not just yourself. Okay. Prompts and cues. This is a prompt and a cue. I got the big hook coming across my neck, handing a person who is eating with their hand or fork, placing it in their hand, and guiding them through the first bite, they can then take over. So it might be as simple as touching the hand and reminding them, let's eat. It might be a physical prop where you actually have to hand over hand. It might be a gesture or demonstration where you do it across from them, or you touch your belt and show them. All communications. The advancement through the stages of Alzheimer's disease is gradual. No two people progress. Ooh, now I'm rushing. No two people progress through the stages. So you guys have this, you can read it later. Some people progress through 2 or more stages at once. So it's not very often in Alzheimer's, but sometimes you're dealing with an early moderate stage, and all of a sudden it could become very late stage, and that could be due to infection or fever or dehydration, and sometimes it's reversible, sometimes not. Early stages of dementia, stage 1 and 2, you can use normal communication techniques. Stages 3 and 4 use positive facial expressions and positive approach, and break down communication to simple steps using less words. Speak slowly and use physical gestures. Signs and pictures may be helpful at this stage. Stage 5 and 6 use positive facial expressions and cheerful body language. Repeat statements, limit choices. I'm skipping ahead here. Stage 7, I wish I had more time to talk to you. The place that we're failing in this industry is stage 6 and 7. We've got beautiful hospices that come into our communities. The beautiful hospices can't stay all the time. Okay, where we're failing, and we just rolled out a program in Bordeaux called Solace. Stage 6 and 7, late stage caregiving. Adult human beings till last breath in and out. It doesn't stop when you can't do programming anymore. It doesn't stop when you can't dine on your own anymore. It does not stop. We want to provide care till end of life in most of our communities. Why not do it well? So let's focus a little bit harder on those end stages. Summary, hey, I got your summary. Okay. I just want to invite you all during the break. We also rolled out a new program. I know advertising for them. It's beautiful. Alzheimer's Association benefits our communities in so many beautiful ways. We have what's called the In Touch program. I invite all of you over to see it. It's another way for us to prepare for the future. Advanced technology for people with dementia. It's done by It's Never Too Late as the company in Brookdale. It's called In Touch. By the end of March, all 40 of my communities will have it in their communities. So please come by and let them give you a demonstration. Thank you. Questions and answers, or food. That's your choice.
Oh, and you can tell Roberts now. She would have said mailer too.
Mailer. Oklahoma. I just got it wrong. How about Bob? Anybody, anything? Food's ruling, I can tell. It's pretty common sense communication. So you're communicating to me that you would like to eat now. Anyway, I'll be here if you want to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Alison Ray, for your expertise and awesome information, and for making the trip from Oklahoma. And of course, a special thanks to our local Homewood residents of Victoria who made that possible. At this time, we will be having lunch, and you don't have to get up. You don't have to go into a buffet line outside. Actually, Homewood is our lunch sponsor, and they will be serving you today. During the lunch, we'll be having a presentation from Homewood's Director of Sales and Marketing, Valerie Armstrong, and then a short presentation from the Professional Service Coordinator for Victoria's Carter Home Health, Mindy Brown. So if you have to run to the...
She wants to say little boys and girls room.
Yes.
I can hear it coming out.
Like, I don't want to say anything, I want to say toilet.
Come out. The toilet.
If you must take a break, can you wait till after the food has been served and the presentations have been done? Thank you. Are you hungry? Anybody brave enough to say yes?
This has been something I've been anticipating for many months. Several of the committee members who have been a part of this from the very beginning the opportunity to bring all of these amazing backgrounds and experiences. We don't get this opportunity very often, so we're a little over halfway through our presenters, but I'd like to give them all a round of applause. So we've got to learn, we've so far been able to hear about what we do as professionals. We've gotten to see the insight into our caregivers, into our actual people who are challenged with dementia. And what I'd like for you to experience now is the transition that you must make when you are a person who has dementia. How many of you need that drive home from work to transition from professional to mother and father, or husband and wife, or whatever you are after you leave your 5 o'clock job? Anybody? But many of us don't need a transition phase to go from working to lunch. That's pretty easy, right? In our Clare Bridge, we understand that our residents need help with that transition. As Alison was speaking on earlier, those prompts and cues, the visual changes, the auditory changes. We also heard from Dr. Williams earlier about the different ways to stimulate your sensories. What you're going to experience now, or in just a few minutes, someone is going to be coming by and offering you a warm, scented napkin. This is what our residents enjoy before they have their meal. We often help them through a program of 6 different programs throughout the day, and there has to be a transitional phase in between each. And when it's time to eat, in order for them to unfocus on what we were doing and refocus on providing nutrition and enjoying the socialization, we help them out by doing exactly what you're going to experience in just a few minutes. When you receive your napkin, it should be warm, it should be wet. It's an opportunity for you to cleanse your hands before you eat, feel it, smell it. When we hand it to our residents, it's a warm, wet, soft washcloth. So they have all of those senses. In the morning, we'll often offer a very stimulating citrus, a lemon or an orange. I believe you will experience the orange today. In the evening, we go for a lavender or something very soothing or relaxing in the evening. But it goes to help them transition, and it helps to stimulate the appetite. And we find that our residents eat better because they're now focused. So as you, Dora, we're ready for the relax, or the program?
Betty, no.
So please enjoy that. And then after that, we will be serving for you today a wintergreen salad with cilantro lime vinaigrette, one of our chef's specialties. And then you will enjoy a beef tenderloin topped with an aged balsamic vinegar, portobello mushrooms, sweet potatoes, and green beans almondine. And then you will enjoy